Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at Neca's quarter scale Predator Special Edition Jungle Hunter featuring LED lights. As far as I can tell, because I didn't own the first one, as far as I can tell, this is the same release as the original, minus the addition of the LED lights. There may be some other updates, I don't know because I never had that figure. I'm going to run this review like it's a new release. That'll give you all the information you need to know whether you own the previous one or not. So let's go ahead and change the camera angle and everything and take a closer look. So this guy stands roughly 19 3/8 inches. That's going to make him just about 49 centimeters. And so that's pretty large, a little bit bigger than quarter scale. If he was supposed to be 6 feet tall, he's supposed to be about 7. I think he could be a little bit taller, but it's probably close enough. Here he is up against a Marvel Legends Darwin. So there's some significant size difference there. Now, as always, we're going to start with the aesthetic. And as always, Neca has nailed the aesthetic. If you look in tight at the skin, there's lots of shading to make it look realistic. All the little details and black things are sculpted and painted. His fishnets are actual fishnets in most places, on his torso especially, on the upper arm back there, not down here on the lower arm just because that's where the articulation is. I think that's a suitable excuse for not having it there, perfectly reasonable. And then same thing down at the legs. You can see you have actual fishnets on the upper legs, and then on the lower legs, he doesn't have any fishnets, so it doesn't matter. So that works out nicely. I think that's pretty cool that they added the actual, I guess you could call it soft goods. And then, as usual, we have the kind of worn metal look throughout all of the armor. That's pretty nice. His clothing has some detail painting on there. It's not as strong as I would like it, but it does have the shading, kind of like a dry brush look. You can see over on his wrist a lot more detail for the flesh and for the gloves. And we'll look at the armor on the legs again, or not again, but closer. A little bit of wear here and there, and the feet have all the detail work you would want. And then let's wrap up the aesthetic by looking at the head. I think the little blast marks are pretty good. At this scale, they're pretty good. They weren't great when they used this sort of effect on the smaller scale. I think they could be a little bit better still. Not in love with it. They're a little bit too purposeful looking, but I think they're fine. They're all right. I guess we could look at the back a little bit. You can see the shading on his butt. Even though it wore on the box, that's not great to have him up against cardboard. Neca, not a great idea. But the rest of it does look really nice with the shading and all the detail and whatnot. So I like that. And I guess at this point, since we're doing the aesthetic, we can talk about the LED feature. You have to take his head off and then undo a thing to make the batteries work. But then you just push in on his tubers over here, and it turns on his little red LEDs. They're not super bright, and if you're not looking directly at them, they're not necessarily obviously on, but they are there, so that's a cool feature. You get a little bit of red light bleeding around the edges over here. It's not a huge deal. In a dark room though, if like you're trying to really make it stand out, not going to look great, so just be aware of that. It's good enough. It's not the best thing ever. I'm not sure if it's enough really to warrant a second purchase if you already own this, but if you didn't already own it, you might as well get the one with the cool feature. All right, so there's one other LED feature, which is in the wrist. So let's look at that. Now, the one problem I have with this is that there's no rotation at the forearm, so you can't make the make this thing rotate. So all you can do is bend the elbow and then rotate it at the non-bicep swivel, which is not great. We'll talk about the thing I just pulled off of him in a second. So it's not great. It doesn't light up on the outside. That's all just painted on, but it does light up on the inside, and it does do a pretty darn good job. When it's not, I think it would have been cool if they made this the switch. They didn't do that. The switch is back here on the arm. That actually lights up really well. I love that. It's really, really well done. It's just some LEDs with a black paint on a clear piece of plastic, but it looks nice. And I think it really would have been cool if they went the extra mile and had it just turn on when you flip this open. That would have been great. So, yeah, the LED feature is cool. Is it that cool? I don't know. I mean, I like things that light up, but I don't know. For a figure like this, how important is it to not have the rest of the figure updated significantly to get it? So, I don't know. I'll let you guys decide for yourself. They do work, so I can't fault it there. So aesthetically, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Looks really good. Could be a little bit better, but it's solid. Now, as far as accessories go, you get these two, I guess you call them necklaces or whatever, ropes with skulls and stuff on them. So the problem is I couldn't figure out how to get them over his head. I guess you could rip the whole thing off. I didn't want to try pulling on the head, but I guess you could rip the head off and then put the things over. So what I did, which I don't recommend anybody else does, is I actually just pulled on the rope, popped it out because it has a glued end. So it's kind of stiff there. And I just popped it out. I put it where I wanted it. And then you can just pop it back in. Now, the only reason it came out was because I was handling the figure roughly and kind of tugged on it. But it does work. So you could try that. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you could do it. But you get that one with the spinal column. Then you get this one with the skulls. And so that's fine if you want those. You get one alternate hand also. That's it. That's it for accessories. Just one fist hand for the claw side. Now, there's technically one other accessory, which is his backpack and blaster, even though you're going to want to keep that on him. Now, my problem is my blaster came busted in the package, so I can't clip on the blaster, just the backpack. So I'm going to have to try to fix that myself, which I can do, but I shouldn't have to, and that's super annoying. And it looks like the blaster is made to receive something like a blast effect, and it doesn't come with one, and it'd be really cool since they added the LED feature to make this light up as well. It's certainly big enough to house a battery, so that's a bummer. So accessory wise, 5 out of 10. It's not great. It's definitely not impressive at all for what is apparently a mostly reissued figure. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. The head is on a ball peg, and it moves around plenty well. The dreads are soft enough that like you can't have the most crazy range, but it's going to be enough. It'll be okay. Looks up and down well enough. That's fine. Shoulders. The shoulder pad is connected down here, but it's going to bunch up, so it's going to get in the way some. You can get that arm out that far. On this side, yeah, it's about that far also. Let's see if I can... Yeah, you can get it a little higher if you lift up that arm. Okay, good. So that side works better. So that's good. Then, of course, you are going to get your full rotation other than where this is, so don't mess with that. That'll tear. On this side, you'll have your full rotation, no problem. You already saw the elbows, but I'll show you again. It's just a swivel hinge. So you get the hinge. Okay, so that'll unglue, apparently, if you use that as your pivot point. That's good to know. All right, I'm wondering if these are not... Did they take old stock? Because my plastic for my blaster broke, and that arm just came off. Are these old stock that they put on new parts? Because I'm kind of thinking that might be the case, which is not cool. So anyway, I'll show you this joint. It rotates there, and then of course you get your elbow hinge, which is not 90 degrees, but it's probably enough. I didn't mention all the joints have these ties on them. I guess that's source accurate. I don't know though. I don't know enough about Predators to know that. So, okay, that's the arms. The wrists are just on little ball pegs. They don't have a ton of range, but they do have some. So that's okay. The waist just swivels, and not well, and not a lot, but you do get a waist swivel. Oh, it's very tight. All right, cool. Let's move the camera so I can show you the lower half. I forgot to mention this, but thanks to editing, I can just show you right now. His claws do extend. I don't know at which point his arm fell off in the review, but his arm did fall off, so I can show you this more conveniently. The claws do extend. Be careful, though. They don't really want to. Give them a little jiggle as you're doing it. Not a big jiggle, just a little jiggle. You can get some decent... I think they'll come out even a little bit further. Yeah. They get decent length on them, so that's really nice. But be careful messing with those. And hopefully I can get this arm to reconnect. But the claws do extend, blades, and they do work pretty well. Just give them a jiggle. Alright, for his hips. As far as I can tell, they're not updated at all. You have a cut right here, and a cut right here. This is the thigh swivel, this is the hip joint. Oops. And so, you can rotate it around like a super old figure on that really angled cut. But it's not that useful because you have to then really also rotate it on here to try to move the leg. But the cut's so bad up here that it's not going to do anything. Plus you have the fishnets over here that you can't really rotate it too much. So these legs are basically just static up and down legs. Only they stick out to the side a little bit more than I would like. It's kind of a wide stance. So I think it would be cooler if they actually give us good hips on this guy. That's pretty disappointing. For the knees, it's basically the same thing as the elbow. You get the swivel and the hinge. Okay, that knee's not going anywhere. This knee swivels too easily. Let's see if the hinge works. Hinge works just fine. So it's about 90 degrees. It's useless though because the hips can't do anything. So there's no point in using knee joint. And then lastly, we have ankles that are ball pegs that are way too loose. So this guy loves to try to fall over. You might be able to get him in the right balance if you're extra careful, because there's not that much range at the ankle. Like, that's as far as they can lean. So if you can bend his knees back a little bit and kind of have him balanced like that, he won't topple. But he's trying his best to fall over. So articulation on this guy is pretty much trash. The arms and the neck work, and that's about it. And the arms don't work that well. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. No, a 2 out of 10. Those hips are terrible. This should have been an updated figure, not just LEDs added. I'm generally a fan of the way Neca does stuff, but as far as I can tell, this reissue, if you want to call it a reissue, which it really is, not very well executed. It's pretty disappointing. I have a strong feeling that these are old stock that have been slightly modified, like a new head and new arm, and that's it, because the plastic seems brittle as heck on my blaster. That just broke off in the package. Like, I hadn't even tried to remove it yet, and it was broken in there. So, and it feels like a very, very brittle plastic. Then you saw the arm pop off. So, not thrilled. I'm going to give this a final rating of, if nothing broke and all the joints were tight, I'd give it like a 7, because you know that the hips suck going into it. But given everything that I've experienced with this release, I'm thoroughly unimpressed with it, other than it looks good. If you can get everything to stay together, it looks good enough. So I'm going to just give it a 5. That's probably too generous even, but they still have the really good sculpt and paint. And if you can get it set up, it's going to look good on a shelf. But you shouldn't have to deal with broken parts and loose joints and things like that. So very unimpressed with this release, unfortunately. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.